There are stories meant to scare children, tales woven to keep them in line. But some legends are whispered in hushed voices, not to frighten, but to warn. In a small African village, one such warning has been passed down for generations. If you hear three knocks at midnight, do not open the door. It was a rule never questioned, a warning never ignored, until one man decided to challenge the unknown. His story is one that no one speaks of anymore, except in fearful whispers. This is the tale of the night caller. Tumi never believed in superstitions. A young man in his 20s, he had grown up listening to his grandmother's eerie tales, always rolling his eyes at them. He was convinced that these were just stories meant to keep villagers obedient, bound by fear. But when he returned to his hometown after years in the city, he found that nothing had changed. People still shut their doors early, still refused to speak of the night caller after dark. It frustrated him. How could people in the modern world still be afraid of an imaginary demon? One evening, as Tumi sat with his childhood friends around a fire, the topic came up again. "You mean to tell me," he scoffed, "that if I hear three knocks at midnight, I shouldn't open the door? What happens if I do?" His friend Labo shot him a grave look. "No one knows," he muttered, "because the ones who open the door are never seen again." Tumi laughed. "Convenient. So no proof?" "Why would anyone risk proving it?" Labo shot back. But Tumi, being the headstrong skeptic he was, made a decision that night. He would break the rule. He would open the door. At exactly 11:59 p.m., Tumi sat in his small family home, staring at the door. His grandmother, now asleep in her room, had warned him to lock up before bed, but he had left the door unlocked, on purpose. He checked his phone. Midnight was just a minute away. He chuckled at how tense he felt despite himself. "It's just a story," he reminded himself. Then, knock. The sound was deep, hollow, yet strangely distant, as if someone stood just beyond the door, but not quite. Tumi's heart jumped. He hadn't expected anything. Maybe it was just a coincidence? A late-night visitor? His hands felt sweaty. Then came the second knock, louder, more forceful. His breath caught. The fire from earlier seemed to dim, the room around him growing colder. Still, he stayed seated, his mind warring with itself. "It's just the wind. Maybe an animal. Maybe Lebo messing with me." Then came the third knock. This one was different. It rattled the walls. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. The ground beneath him vibrated slightly. The air thickened, making it harder to breathe. Tumi swallowed hard. This was wrong, but he had made up his mind. Slowly he stood. His feet felt heavier than before, as if something resisted his movement. He took a shaky breath and reached for the door handle. He turned it and pulled the door open. At first he saw nothing, just the empty village street bathed in moonlight. The wind howled softly, rustling the trees. Then he noticed the shadow. It was tall, twisted, and shifting, like something was standing there but not fully formed. A chill crawled up Tumi's spine. The shape flickered, almost human, but wrong. Then it moved. Not stepped, not walked, but moved, like a ripple in reality itself. One moment it was at a distance, the next it was closer. Tumi's breath came fast. His instincts screamed at him to close the door, to run, but his body wouldn't move. The figure tilted its head. Then in a voice that was not a voice, it spoke. "You opened the door." The words echoed inside his skull, not in the air. "Now you are mine." The world shifted. The night stretched. The shadows moved like liquid. The air around him turned thick and suffocating. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing he saw before darkness consumed him was his own reflection in the window. Except it wasn't him. It was smiling. Morning came. The sun rose. Birds chirped. But Tumi was gone. His grandmother woke to find the door wide open, the room unnaturally cold. A deep unease settled in her bones as she stepped outside, calling his name. No answer. Neighbors joined the search. They combed through the village, the fields, the surrounding roads. Tumi was nowhere to be found. Only one thing was left behind: his phone, lying face down near the doorway. When they picked it up, the screen was still recording. They pressed play. At first, there was only silence. Then, knocking, 1, 2, 3. Then came a whisper, chilling and inhuman. He opened the door. The recording cut to static. The villagers never spoke of it again. But every midnight, if one listens closely, they say you can still hear the knocks. Would you open the door? Some stories are just that. Stories. But others? They are warnings. The legend of the night caller remains a mystery. No one dares test it anymore. No one is foolish enough to open the door. Because those who do, they are never seen again. And sometimes, just sometimes, they come back, but not as themselves. Did this story send chills down your spine? Let us know in the comments if you would open the door. If you love African horror stories, subscribe to Afro-Scars for more terrifying tales from the dark corners of the continent. And remember, never open the door.